web from the beautiful Aspen Highlands conference room. If we have any issues with the feed for you guys who are visiting with us from another ski school, just know that we're recording this session and we will post it to Dropbox, so you'll have access to the presentation for your own use, and feel free to use and distribute as you like within PSIA. And thanks to Heavenly and Deer Valley for joining us, and thanks to Aspen for joining us. I want to tell you a little bit about myself. So my name is Kate Howe, and I'm a trainer here at the Ski and Snowboard Schools of Aspen Snowmass. And I want to talk a little bit about why I wanted to give this presentation. 4 years ago, I went through the selection process, and I left realizing that one of the things that was really stopping me from getting where I wanted to go was that I had a coping mechanism that I was using to handle nerves when I was being evaluated under pressure. And that coping mechanism was that I was really accomplished at pushing down expectations so that I could be just good enough to be in the back of the pack, and then I could kind of slowly begin to perform better and better over time. And what that did was it made me feel safe, right? So it made me feel like that way I can't let anybody down. The problem is that that does just enough to keep you in the middle of the pack, and it does nothing to actually put you where you want to be, which is to pass your certification or get selected, right? And so when I left that selection process with that information, I thought, wow, this is really terrific. I have an opportunity to explore why that coping mechanism is in place and how I can take it out and reprogram myself so that I have access to my best ability, so that I can perform to my best ability right out of the starting gate. And it was a 4-year introspective process that was psychosis to do differently. To improve my skiing, I traveled to India and lived there for 5.5 months. That's not a place you commonly go to improve your skiing, but it helped me a lot. I went to Thailand and studied there. I hired Tom Crum, who lives here in Aspen. He is a mental performance coach and an Aikido grandmaster. And I worked with him. And I read a lot of books and I talked to a lot of people. And so what we have here is basically a presentation that is highlights from what I've learned over the last 4 years. And I hope that it will help you guys on your journey as you head towards certification or selection. So I am by no means an expert on the science behind performance. I am the guinea pig. And the selection process for me was the lab. And so I'd like to share my journey with you. So one of the resources that I used was a book called Performing Under Pressure: The Science of Doing Your Best When It Matters the Most. And most of the research and data that I'm going to present to you guys tonight is showcased in that book. And I have a resources slide at the very end, so you'll be able to see all most of the stuff that I was pulled information from. So without further ado, let's get started. So hopefully this evening, we will not have a whole lot of Bueller, but we will have truths about pressure and pressure myths, the science of pressure, how pressure actually affects us and why we feel the way that we do under pressure, pressure solutions before and during the event, and how to prepare yourself best for the event. We'll have some question and answer discussion if you guys want to talk or share your own experience, and then I'll give you the resources and we'll wrap it up. So let's talk about some of the truths about pressure. So pressure disrupts. Let me back up just for a second. The truths about pressure, and many of these things are taken from a study of over 12,000 people over 10 years. And the study was done by J.P. Fry and his partner, just to credit it out there. So pressure disrupts what we value most. This is the first truth about pressure. What do we value most? Our friendships, our careers, our connections with people, our own sense of integrity. Under pressure, when we give in to that kind of distorted thinking that pressure can give us, we tend to make decisions that we would not otherwise make. And it hurts our career path, and it hurts our relationships. And I'll talk more about each of these truths as we go further in. the second truth about pressure is that people who handle pressure better than others don't actually rise to the occasion. There is no such thing as a clutch performer. There's clutch performances, but there is no such thing as a person who performs better under pressure than they do not under pressure. That's a myth, and I have all kinds of data to share with you to back that one up. When I first heard that, I was like, that's not true, because Michael Jordan and da-da-da-da-da, but it's very interesting when you look at the science. The third truth is that in order to handle the effects of pressure, you really just need to leverage the tools that you already have. Your ability to regulate your own psychological and physiological reaction to pressure. And those are in the pressure solutions portion that we'll talk about as we go on. So being aware of these truths can help you overcome the effects of pressure, which is just knowing that they're out there is the start. So pressure sabotages us. So this is cheating, right? So it sabotages us, like I said earlier, because the effects of pressure can ask us to make decisions that we wouldn't normally make. Maybe in order to beat the other people that are doping, we start doping. Calm ourselves, we take a performance-enhancing drug that has a calming effect. So it's an interesting and a hairy situation. I just read an article that came out in NPR about high-performing musicians. We have one in the audience, a high-performing musician, not a one who's handling with this situation. One of the things that they did in the study was they talked to musicians who do solos or first violin seat in the orchestra. And what they found out is that musicians are using beta-blocking drugs in order to calm themselves so that they can perform. And it's so prevalent in the industry that it's become very much like cycling, that in order to perform, you almost have to use these drugs in order to level the playing field, get the scholarship, win the award, get the first chair. And so in people's normal life, they wouldn't, like probably when you entered into your industry, you weren't like, I know, I'm gonna make this terrible decision. It happens over time because the pressure not to lose is so strong, or the pressure to win is so strong. So that's how pressure sabotages us. Everybody experiences pressure, even the most seasoned. So recognizing that as you go through the certification process or you head towards selection and you want to do your best, recognize that pressure messes with you a little bit, right? When you give in to distorted thinking, and we'll talk about why distorted thinking happens as a result of pressure, but when you give into it or it takes hold of you and you don't even know that it's happening, you can have really negative reactions with the people that you're working with or the people that you're living with. You can get hostile, you can say things that aren't kind, you can feel like you're behaving really selfishly. So just being aware of those things is really important. So I suggest setting up a safe word. And it's safe word, so maybe like a word like strawberry or banana or something, whatever it is that makes you happy, sunglasses. But you can use that safe word in order to communicate with the people around you who are being affected by your process. So as you're heading through certification and you feel the pressure and you start to react to that pressure, and Tom says to me, could you do the dishes? And I'm like, I'm writing my presentation! Like, that's because of the pressure of the presentation. This Tom, not that one. That's because of the pressure, and now I'm taking my nerves and my stress out on this person in my life. So if instead, ahead of time, I'm like, hey, you and I are going into this thing together, right? We're sharing space, we hang out a lot together. I want you to know that I'm gonna feel the effects of pressure, and I might be a little bit of a brat, and it might be really difficult and I may not even know what's going on. So I'm gonna give you permission, if you feel that I am behaving badly, not to say you're a brat, because then I'll get angry and I'll fight back, but to say, how are those strawberries doing? Right? Because it's not a direct attack. It's not a judgment. It's just a message from this person in my life that I care about, that perhaps it may also be affecting him. And then it takes a second and I'm like, oh, strawberries, shoot. sorry, I really need to work on this. Is it cool if we do this later? And then it's a conversation and not an argument. So use a safe word. Sometimes the reason that we feel this hostility, especially in our own living situation, is because we feel like we don't deserve to win, or we feel like we don't even deserve to train to win. It's something that we want, it comes from us, but we're not isolated. We're people that are connected to other people. And so when you have this fear that you're not worth the effort that you know you need to put into your goal, it affects everybody around you. That syndrome is called imposter syndrome, and I will talk about it a little bit more. Many people face that syndrome. So, imposter syndrome is a term that was coined in 1978 by clinical psychologists Pauline Clance and Suzanne Imes. And I'm going to read the description right off the thing here. It refers to high-achieving individuals marked by an inability to internalize their accomplishments and a persistent fear of being exposed as a fraud. And many, many, many people experience this situation. And this is a picture of Maya Angelou here, who said famously, when my 11th best-selling book came out, I thought, oh no, now they're really going to know that I'm a fraud. The more successful she became, the more afraid she was that she had been duping everybody for a long time. So recognize that you're not alone if you experience those feelings, that maybe you'll be exposed as a fraud, and that often they come from giving in to pressure or not having set up your situation with your team or your loved ones, the people that work with you, and helping them support you through the difficult process of certification or selection. Some studies suggest that imposter syndrome is particularly common among high-achieving women. Others indicate men and women are equally affected. Regardless, the proof of success is dismissed as luck, timing, or a result of deceiving others into thinking that they are more intelligent and competent than they believe themselves to be. So if this rings true with you, take a little note about it, because this may be something that you can go off and explore. Giving in to imposter syndrome keeps you from performing at your best. Okay, let's talk about the truth of clutch performers. So, like I said, clutch performances exist, but clutch performers do not. I'm going to go through some studies and statistics here and that I'm going to read off the slide because I think it's really important that the data backs this up. And it helps us to understand why we have this myth. Did anybody here see the movie The Natural? You know, Robert Redford hits the home run finally with Wonder Boy. So this is one of the things that we want to believe is true about athletes. That when the pressure's on, get that guy. He's the guy that'll come up and totally save the day because he performs better under pressure than anybody else. Better under pressure than he would without pressure. So here's the data. To analyze clutch hitting in baseball, David Grabiner, over the course of 245 player sessions, studied batters who had at least 250 at-bats in the late innings of games in which the scores were close. Were there hitters in baseball who hit better under pressure than they did when they were under less pressure? No. Grabiner looked over the data and concluded that there is no such thing as a batter who consistently hits better in the higher pressure moments of the game. It is a myth. According to David, even Reggie Jackson, Mr. October, never hit better in the playoffs than he did in the regular season. Jackson's best playoff appearance only equaled his 5th best regular season. The same holds true in basketball. In a study in the April 2009 issue of International Journal of Creativity and Problem Solving, researchers examined the performance of NBA basketball players using free throw shooting. So free throw shooting is really a good thing to study because things don't change. The distance from the basket doesn't change. It's always the same. It's always unguarded, and you can measure when in the game they take their shots. So you can see if it's closer to the beginning of the game or closer to the end of the game when the game's on the line, so you can judge the pressure. So this is a good lab. So the researchers for this study collected their data from game transcripts for every NBA game played between 2003 and 2006, including the playoffs. They identified every free throw taken in the last minute of a game when the teams were within 5 points of each other and the outcome was still uncertain. The smaller the point differential, the greater the pressure. So the highest pressure situation is when a player's team is down by 1 point because making the free throw will tie the game. The researchers compared the percentage of free throws made for each point difference between teams to the average percentage of the free throws made by those players across an entire season. If the shooters shot below their season average, then they were performing worse under pressure. If the shooters shot above their season average, they were excelling under pressure. The season average for free shots made successfully was 76%. In the highest pressure situation, however, the results showed that players only made about 69% of their free throws. So in other words, they shot significantly worse under pressure. And the researchers from this study concluded that there is no player in the NBA, 0 players in the NBA, who perform better under pressure than they do without pressure. It's a myth. There are people who regulate the effects of pressure better than others. So when the pressure's on, that person is able to perform to their best capacity, but never better than that. Does that make sense? Awesome. So Michael Jordan is a famous example of this because in his final game when he was retiring for the Chicago Bulls, he won the game with a free throw. And the pressure was on. It was super intense for everybody. It was a championship game, so it was on for the Bulls, it was on for Jordan retiring, it was on. And he made it. And he says, though, that the night of that game, he actually had a really lousy night. He only connected on 15 of 35 of his shots, which is way below his regular average. That one shot just happened to be a good one at a good time. So he says, I've missed more than 900 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life. So for now, just recognize that you do not have to be a clutch performer. You do not have to transform yourself into some mythical creature that can leap tall buildings. You don't have to perform miraculously better than you ever have before in order to succeed. In fact, believing in that myth adds pressure. And we just heard some data that tells us that pressure reduces performance. So what you do need to do is learn skills that allow you to be the person that can handle the effects of pressure so that you can perform your best. So individuals who handle pressure are individuals who are sensitive to their emotional shifts. They're people that recognize the psychological and physiological effects of pressure. So elevated heart rate, disorganized thinking, inability to concentrate, shaking, right? These are symptoms that you're experiencing pressure. So first, being sensitive to the fact that you're experiencing things like that, and second, understanding that they are coming as a result of pressure sets you up to be like, oh, I recognize this as... Regulating arousal is crucial if you're going to manage emotions. So why does pressure affect us so much? So this is sort of going into the science behind our evolution with pressure. So pressure moments are stressful moments in which the results matter. In a pressure moment, your success or your survival feels like it's truly on the line because primal man, you know, if you're being chased by a predator and you don't successfully leap across the stream, you will die. Okay, so getting selected or not is not going to kill you, but your body and your brain don't know the difference. Because pressure, if the result matters to you, you will experience pressure. And your mind will think that you're running away from a predator, right? So these moments, they're related to immediate survival. Your psychological response is a gift from your ancestors. Thank you so much. That was lovely. Pressure evolved as a selection mechanism to decide who would advance in life and who wouldn't. All right. So let's gain some perspective. does the situation really call for the reaction that I'm having, right? If you're standing there waiting your turn and there's 10 people in front of you and you feel your heart rate start to go up and you feel yourself start to get dizzy and unfocused and you're like, I have to watch, I can't watch, I shouldn't watch. What did they say? What am I doing? What's the task? That's all result of pressure, right? Recognizing first that this is happening to you as a result of pressure and then trying to gain perspective. That's the second step, right? Is the response that I'm having appropriate for the situation that I am? Am I being chased? Is anybody bleeding? Is something on fire? Probably not. I'm actually just standing here waiting my turn. So, gaining a little bit of perspective. Am I in the situation or does the situation have me? If you recognize that, you can make a little bit of space between what's going on and how you react to it. And in that space, you can use some of the tools that we will get to, I promise. Okay, so the nature of pressure. This is sort of how pressure itself is organized in your mind. The outcome is important to you. The outcome is uncertain. You feel responsible for and are being judged on the outcome. That is pressure. The more important the outcome is to you and the more uncertain the outcome, the more responsible you feel for the results and the more judged you feel, the more intense the pressure situation and the more likely you are to underperform. So has anybody ever been in a certification situation like that where you're standing there and the results are really important and the results are uncertain and you feel like you're being judged because they're standing there with the scorecard going, that turn sucked, right? No. But you may be thinking that, right? So this is the pressure platform that you're standing on. Let's go through a little bit of the hormones that happen when you are in situations like that and why you have the physiological and psychological response that you do so that we can recognize that it's not some airy-fairy thing where I need to learn to sit down and gaze at my navel or I need to just miraculously be a myth, you know, this incredible creature that can perform, but that there's science behind it. There's a reason we behave that way. And if there's a reason with data, we can make different choices. So let's go through some of the science. Cortisol is a hormone that's produced when we're under stress. It's an important hormone when it comes to how we react under pressure. Its most important impact is its effect on our ability to think and retrieve memory. So has anybody ever gone just blank when you're giving a presentation and you're like, or doing MA, and you're like, so I see the skis. I have no idea what they did. Did they bend? Did they twist? And then there's the crickets. Yeah, that's cortisol flooding your brain and blocking off the access to memory. Along with another chemical, which is called corticotrophin-releasing hormone, or CRH. It's produced by the amygdala. Cortisol incites anxiety, commonly called anticipatory anxiety. And it suppresses the production of another important hormone, which is testosterone. So testosterone acts to invigorate our behavior. And cortisol shuts down or inhibits the amount of testosterone that gets produced. So in the absence of testosterone, approach-based behavior, which is like task-specific behavior, right? So I understand that my mission is to do this thing. That's task-based behavior. So in the absence of testosterone, approach-based behavior is diminished, and our attention becomes selectively focused on negative aspects of a situation. So we call that attention bias. It causes us to see all the stimuli in front of us as negative or threatening. We become paranoid and we amplify the negative. So John Coates wrote a book called The Hour Between Dog and Wolf, in which he was examining the effects of pressure on traders in Wall Street. And he said, prolonged exposure to cortisol does longer-term damage to two structures of the brain that proportionally have more cortisol receptors: the amygdala and the hippocampus. The amygdala is where the emotional content of memories is stored, and the hippocampus is where the factual memory of an event is stored. The amygdala records how you felt as you faced pressure moments from the past, and the hippocampus stores the facts, what actually happened. Who was involved, how was it resolved, and what was learned. So while the receptors of the hippocampus, where the factual information is stored, shrink under the influence of excessive cortisol, the receptors in the amygdala, the emotional center, grow under the influence of cortisol. This is why over time our thinking can become more emotional and less factual. So the more you're influenced by stress and pressure, the more cortisol you have, the less clearly you think, the less access you have to factual information, and the more emotionally you begin to think. So as cortisol levels rise and exposure to the hormone becomes chronic, we increasingly recall events that were stored when under its influence, mainly difficult moments that we had in the past when things didn't turn out well. So how does this apply to us in snow sports? So if you have ever been in a situation where you think to yourself, but I'm really good at this, when they're not judging me, I rock it. My clients love me. I can look at you and do MA on you and be like, you should probably stop doing this with your hands or whatever it is that you're thinking, right? And then under pressure, it's not fair because they don't see what I really can do, right? And this is emotional thinking. It's not fair. So how is it that you can retrieve your ability, put it into the framework of examination or selection so that you can give people an accurate example of your skill set? And that's really what you're doing. You're giving them a sample, right? You're like, this is generally sort of a good example of what it is that I do on the snow. Here you go, take a look. So things feel really uncomfortable to us when we feel like we're not being judged fairly. Right? When I'm like, I have this skill set and you're not seeing it. So when I feel unfairly judged, I can feel shame, I can feel anger, I can feel frustration, I can feel excluded from the group. So it turns out that this is akin to pain, and that pain triggers the same sort of thing as it does when you're running away from the predator and you need to jump over the river. So emotional pain, exclusion from the group, see Maslow's /belonging, right? Exclusion from the group or feelings of guilt and shame and pain are as equal to physical pain. And it releases the same flood of hormones, the same cortisol, the same stress. And the reason is because prehistoric man needed to be in the group to be safe. We hunted in numbers. If you got exiled from the group because you're underperforming and you're exposing the group to risk, you're going to die. That's why it's important to us to belong. And we still have that same trigger in our mind. So awareness is the first place. You need to bring some insight into how these high pressure situations affect you and understand that maybe it isn't the physical piece, maybe it's the emotional piece, and that it's as valid. It's just giving you a target from where you need to start to do your work so that you can perform your best. So let's talk about pressure traps. There are a couple of them. So the first one is the support trap, and this kind of goes along with the emotional pain piece. So how wonderful is it when people are like, ooh, can I come and watch? When are results? Should I come and listen to results? Like I have eye rolling. And you're like, oh, it's so nice that they want to support me. And oh my God, just knowing that you're going to be there just sets off this huge flood of anxiety and fear, right? What about when you're getting selected and someone who has been helping you train or someone who's been mentoring you ends up on the selection committee and they're watching you with a scorecard? Have you ever had that happen? You're like, oh God, I really don't want to disappoint that person. And they're down there going, do your best, come on, I know you can. And they're only going to write down what you actually do in front of them at that moment, right? And so you have this pressure to perform and succeed in front of people that you care about. So this is a picture of a golfer, obviously, but it reflects a story that Tiger Woods told about being on the President's Cup. So President's Cup is one of the golfing events where they work in teams. And Tiger talked about the fact that all his teammates were standing there in their bright red t-shirts as he's trying to make this putt. And even though he's looking at the ball, all he can see is this sea of red of people standing really still and holding their breath. And he said the pressure was more intense than any event he's ever participated in, ever. And that all they could talk about was how to support each other. And the problem was that they were supporting each other. No one wanted to let anybody fail. So everybody started playing not to lose. And what happens when you play not to lose? Yeah, you play like crap, huh? So putts get missed. Ski gets pushed away, whatever, right? So the support trap. And it's just important to know that this increases your chances of survival. That's why the pressure trap exists. So let's think about how a pressure trap, I'm going to write some things down here. Let's think about how a pressure trap might exist at something like selection or certification. What might be examples of a pressure trap for you? I gave you a couple. Somebody, okay, yes.
Okay, a super high anxiety person who's like standing on the hill with you and like you're waiting for your turn and they're just vomiting out all of their
Yes.
freaked out about their own performance. And it sort of affects you emotionally.
Oversharing. Okay, so that's somebody adding to your pressure. Maybe in as it relates to this one, it might be that you feel a need to care for that person or caretake them when really you're trying to caretake yourself, right? So I'm like, oh my God, I'm really scared. Are you scared? I know what I'm going to do. What's your coaching cue? What are you doing? Or what are you listening to? Can I listen to your music? And you're just like, stop. Yeah, too much. Okay, what else might be a support trap, a pressure support trap that you might experience at selection?
Peer pressure.
Peer pressure, yeah, from the group. Don't mess it up. We want you on this team. We want you at this certification level. We've been helping you. We know you can. Oh God, no, I know I'm gonna mess it up. Okay, and there's, you know, the family attending. This is important. I'm writing this down because you have to figure out what your own support trap is. So when your sister says to you, can I come and watch? You can say, thank you for offering, but it's actually gonna make it harder for me because I care about you so much. Come the day after, I'll let you know how it goes. But you're the only person that knows if that's the thing you need to do or not, right? So family. How about roommates? Yeah? Does that affect you? When they're like, let's get a house together. Maybe that's not a great idea, right? I mean, maybe it is. Maybe you're a super social person. Okay, so make your own list of possible supportive, pseudo-supportive things that might turn into traps for you. Because what we're trying to do is eliminate the things that add pressure to the situation so that all there is you and your skiing, right? That's the goal. So there are some technology assists. Do you have yours?
I charged it up and brought it as you asked.
Thank you. Okay, so you're not going to do it again? Really severely. If you begin to recognize patterns that you want to change and you don't know how to really change them, you've got awareness, but you don't know how to switch your mindset, you can use something called a Pavlok. So this is part of my 4 years of experimentation. I went through a whole bunch of interesting, like that doesn't work, that doesn't work. This is very interesting. So a little technology assist is okay. You can also do it with a rubber band. You can take a rubber band, you can put it on your wrist, and when you're like, wow, I really want to make my mom proud, right? Because that's a negative that interrupts that negative feedback loop, right? This pain sensation interrupts that thought process. And the longer you've had this thought process, if I can just get my gold pin, my parents will finally be proud of me, right? That pain sensation interrupts that heavily myelinated neuropathway in your brain. And you can then say, you know what, I'm doing this for me, right after. So a Pavlok is a Pavlovian training device. Who wants to try it? Okay, come here. So this is a shocker. It's basically a shock collar. And what you do
It's awful.
is you put it on your wrist. And think of something that you want to change, because let's not just shock you.
I want to stop my wrist.
I want to stop volunteering for things, and then you just press this. You want to try it? You just shock yourself and pass it around. So I have some of them, you can turn it up and down, right? It goes from 80% to 20% or something like that. And you can use it for everything from quitting smoking, thank you, to stopping nail biting, to changing negative thoughts. it's because they're passing around the Pavlok, just our web guys, just so you know. Okay, the pressure traps, the incentive trap. So there's been some really interesting studies about incentives and how they add pressure to us. Do you shock yourself?
I did a little experiment first.
Just put it on your wrist. Come here. Come here. I'm not going to tell you how high I have it set.
It's not that.
It's not that high.
Your face didn't make it look
Because I've had it happen before.
She knows.
Oh! Oh, that's not pleasant.
Put it on mic. Okay, so I used this. You have to, yep. Oh, he didn't even flinch. You have to have it firmly on there. So it's powerful. It's a little bit like, and maybe, you know, for some people you have to turn it way up, but it's a little bit like your best friend coming up to you and being like, snap out of it. You're like, oh, okay, clears the red haze, right? And you're like, let's make a different choice. Okay, let's move on to incentive traps because we want to get to the good stuff. We want to get to the pressure solutions. So it's just important to recognize how we get trapped, and before we can apply solutions, you got to know why it happened, right? So incentive traps are things like, you know, if you achieve this level, I'll give you X amount of money. So there have been a ton of studies about this, and one of them was a study where they brought a group of people into the room, and they said, was engineers, and they said, okay, here's a candle, a box of matches, some thumbtacks, and a table. And I want you to attach the candle to the wall in a way that when it's lit, it doesn't drip wax onto the table. And your success at this is going to help us build some metrics for how people do. We're going to time you. And then the other group was given the exact same instructions and the exact same setup. And they said, if you're the fastest, we'll give you X, or if you're in the top 20%, we'll give you X number of dollars. And if you're the fastest, we'll double it. And the group that had the financial incentive performed, on average, 3.5 minutes slower than the group that was just being timed. Because they wanted that result. They wanted the goal. They wanted the pin. They wanted the cash. And when you're results oriented, you cannot perform. It adds pressure, right? So we need to remove the incentive. So how might we think, I mean, we don't, maybe in skiing, you get that gold pin and then you get a pay raise, right? So that might be one of the incentives that you're going for. If you're thinking about that while you're in certification, that's going to be a problem, right? What might be some other incentives that we might be going for? What can you think of? Yeah.
Passion and desire for excellence.
There you go. If I can be as excellent as possible, that's actually probably less pressure. If I can be great as I can be. It depends maybe on who's measuring that excellence. If she wants to see how good you can be, then you're trying to get her to think you're excellent. That's incentive. Does that make sense? How you can turn it around the other way. So it depends on where the motivation's coming from. All right, competition. So this is what I use Pavlok for, that shocking thing, or your rubber bands. The competition trap says, I must win at all costs, or I must not lose at any cost. And what this does is it sets us up to fall into what's called the ranking mindset. So if this is my group of people that are in my ski group on that day, and I'm under pressure, and I begin to think like, how's she doing? Am I skiing better or worse than her? I can't really tell. And then you start asking the person next to you, how did that look? You know? And then, oh geez, I know that he's skiing well, and I know that he's skiing well, but that's okay, because if I'm 1, 2, 3 below them, I'm still in the possible. And what this does is it puts you in a place where you're busy ranking yourself so you're not performing. You're caught in the competition trap. The opposite of ranking mindset is excellence mindset, which is the way we just talked about it. I want to see how good I can be at this for myself in this moment. What do I need to do right? So I'll tell you a little story about my adventure with Pavlok in a place called Sodbuster. So Sodbuster is a run that we have here at the Aspen Highlands, which has kind of become a nemesis for me. I used to love it. It was one of my favorite runs. And then I had a bad time at selection on that run. And I left that run with the story that I am not capable of skiing Sodbuster well. And that is not a good story to carry around with you. And so I realized that I needed to break this nonsense, because it's just another run. I needed to break this story, so I go in and I ski Sodbuster. And as I'm skiing down, I hear myself say in my own head, a person that would get the job you're applying for would ski this better than you are skiing it right now. Because who was I ranking myself against? Some phantom person who was going to get selected but not me. Not helpful, not healthy, right? So I thought to myself, okay, excellence. I stopped in the middle of the run, shocked myself. Excellence mindset, okay? What do I need to do right to ski this well right now? Just for the next 4 bumps. Dun, 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 dun. Okay? So ranking mindset can be you against yourself. Ranking mindset can be you against how you think you should be. Ranking mindset can be you against how somebody else told you you should be. It can also be you against how you assume people are judging you from the chair, right? They don't think I'm skiing this well. I'm not skiing as well as they think I should. So it's a tricky trap, and it's the competition trap. So feelings of competitiveness are hardwired in us. It's not necessarily a bad thing. If you can turn that competition into, how can I be the best I can be for me? What can I do well? Competition can work for you, and so can nerves. When you fall into ranking, that's when we get into trouble with it. So getting some self-revelations about the trap and your reactions to those traps, you can use a couple of questions just to see where you are. If you're in the middle, then you're under pressure, but you're managing it. If you're finding yourself identifying with one side or the other in these questions, then you've got some work to do, and you can mark it down that you're recognizing this. Do you have fear of not getting the reward, or do you have the need to attain the reward? If you're somewhere in between, then you're managing that pressure okay. Do you have a fear of being rejected by others, or do you need to be accepted by others? Either one of those things you can work on. Somewhere in the middle is a more balanced place to be. Not wanting to lose or needing to win. So those are the polarities that happen in the pressure traps. Here's a technology assist that may be useful to you if you have realized that you are subject to one of those things. If you can't figure this out by yourself, because you don't have a background in sports psychology, there is a new thing. It's called Talkspace. I've tried it. It's awesome. It's text messaging therapy. So you go on, you sign up, you say, I want a sports psychologist who will be available to me from now until the end of selection. And I would like on this date for them to be available for instant messaging. And then they introduce you to the person and you start to work with them, and you can leave voice messages, you can leave recorded video messages, or you can Skype with them, or you can just text with them. And they get back to you within 24 hours of any message that you leave. So it's really powerful because you can just be like, here's what I need help with. Help me break this pattern, right? If you have an issue with your kidneys, you go to a kidney specialist. If you have an issue with your head, you go to a head specialist. $99 a month. I'm not related to them or anything. I just think it's awesome. So there's help out there. As you go through this process of figuring out how to do your best, you may want to begin to move from purpose. So one of the other assists that I got was I hired Tom Crum to work with me. So he's a mental performance coach, and there are mental performance coaches all over the country. Tom Crum talks a lot about moving from purpose. Don't go anywhere until you have purpose. I will say that in this journey of my own self-realization to this point, ... more to come, this was the most difficult thing that I did. It took, I think, 8 months to come to the first version of Tom, and I was like, hey, I'd really like to have your help. I've coached for him before, and I like his thoughts, but I was like, look, do not say anything about moving from center, rainbows and dolphins will cure the world. I just need a real solution. And he was like, okay, what I want you to do is move from center with purpose. And I was like, ah! But what was interesting was figuring out what is my purpose in this selection truly. How can I have a purpose that really resonates with my big purpose, the purpose of me here on this planet? That was an exhausting process, but it was one that helped me unlock my susceptibility to pressure traps or pressure in general. So just another thing to do. Write down, if this resonates with you, what is your purpose in life? And how does that relate to skiing? Why are you doing this? Let's know before we go there. Okay, it is time. We've all been waiting. Pressure solutions. So weeks or months before the event. Brad Gilbert was a tennis pro. He wrote an awesome book called Winning Ugly. And winning ugly means not cheating, but doing all the things that nobody else thinks of to set yourself up so that all you have to do is actually hit the ball or turn your feet, right, in our case. So some of these solutions I learned from Brad Gilbert. Some of them I learned from life experience. I used to be a competitive athlete and traveled a lot in that endeavor. And so I've gained information from that. Some of it I've gained from friends. And so I'm just going to share with you about 20 solutions that you can use before the event and during the event to help yourself relieve pressure. So the first thing I would suggest that you do is weeks or months before the event, look at the people who have the job that you want, right? Or who are certified at the level that you want to be certified at. What is common about these people, right? Do they show up with no socks? Or are they very well prepared? Is their uniform dirty or torn? Is their gear tuned? So let's say that we're heading toward team selection. What are some of the common traits in successful people that are successful on the team or getting selected to the team or to your whatever regional situation? Common traits of successful people in ski instructing. Go. Say one.
Professionalism.
Which means what?
Certain kind of code of conduct. If you don't show them being really negative. Or
Not negative. Is that a double negative? Let's call that speak positively. Okay, what else?
Perform the same exercise, same different conditions.
Okay, so they're able to ski well in many different kinds of conditions, so their technical ability is high, okay? What about something as simple as timeliness? Are people that you admire in this industry more on time than not? Oh God, I hope so. It should be under professionalism, right? 10 minutes early is on time. We need to start slapping people. Early. Do they show up with their stuff in a pillowcase? What kind of, when someone who you admire in the industry shows up at a traveling event, what do they have? How'd they bring their gear? What do you see? It's a question. What do you see? They don't have a pillowcase, they have a boot bag?
Boot bag.
Okay, awesome. Are you guys awake? Do you need candy? Boot bag. Okay, if you're just starting along the certification path and you're watching this, it's important that you understand that you can learn a lot about how to reduce your own stress by looking at how prepared people who are successful in the industry are. Okay, in that boot bag is probably an extra pair of socks and some Band-Aids and some sugar. Okay, or something like that, right? They have an extra change of whatever they need. So look around, decide who it is that you admire in this industry, decide who it is that has the job that you're going for, and see what can you learn from them that's simple. Not that they can ski anything perfectly all the time. That's the hard part. Well, skiing is the easy part, right? Wasn't that in the movie? But to me, that's the hard part. The easy stuff is sleeping the night before, packing the night before, having the right stuff packed, that kind of thing. Very useful. This mitigates a lot of pressure because then you've got things contained. You've got the details handled. So 3 weeks before the event, start living out of that boot bag. If you don't have one, refer to your previous to-do list, please. So fill that boot bag with everything that you think that you might need, that you might want to have at the selection event, right? So are you prone to twisting your ankle? Put tape in there, right? Do you need sunscreen? Put sunscreen in there. Put extra sunscreen in there. Put a t-shirt in there. Put sunglasses in there. Put extra socks in there. Put snacks in there, okay? 3 weeks before the event, start to do this. And then carry that boot bag around with you everywhere that you go and live out of the boot bag. And then every night when you go home, put the bag in the same place, plug it into the same outlet, open all the zippers, replenish whatever you took out, re-zip it so it's ready to go. Run through the list the night before. Goggles, gloves, helmet, done. Snack, done. Extra socks, done. T-shirt to change into, done. Right? If you do this and then you live out of that bag every night for weeks before your event, when you travel to the event, it will not be so stressful not to be at your house because your boot bag has become your house. So you're mitigating the pressure of not being in your own home. Yeah? Does that make sense? Awesome. Okay. Oh my gosh, what do I have? Ibuprofen, Tylenol, shot blocks, water, nuts, snap peas, duct tape, wedges, shims, extra boot fitting foam, heat, like batteries, extra batteries, battery charger. Anybody have anything in their boot bag that I didn't mention? I have a really big boot bag, it's full. And I still forget my socks sometimes. Okay, the next piece is visualization, right? Have you guys ever seen Racer? This is an interesting place for him to choose to stand. Just in case he gets scared while he's visualizing, he can run to the potty. But have you seen racers come down as they're previewing a course and then they just lean on their poles and then you see them doing this, right? And they're visualizing that course. You also can use visualization. Now, we don't have a prescribed course, but we do have tasks that we know that we have to ski during selection or during certification. So if every single night you spend 10 minutes sitting comfortably and closing your eyes and watching yourself from whatever camera angle works for you, this is something that I think is interesting. I ski behind myself when I visualize, and sometimes I have an overview. Other people see themselves coming at them this way. Other people see out of their own eyes when they're visualizing. So it's a whole, that's personal, that part doesn't matter. The important thing is that you watch yourself doing what you know how to do. So if it's skiing bumps, I had to spend a lot of time visualizing skiing bumps. Bumps really were difficult for me. And I would visualize, and then after about 6 turns during my visualization, in my mind, I would blow out of the bump line and mess up, right? So that's because that's the story that I believed at that time about my bump skiing. And I needed to reprogram that story through visualization. I had to force myself, when I felt myself getting out of alignment in my mind, what would you do at that moment? Pause the video, pause the imagery, get yourself back. What would you do here? And see myself. I had to smooth that portion out. And it's powerful, and it works. And it's used by CEOs and traders and athletes and artists and performers all over the world. You can visualize your fingering if you're playing an instrument. You can visualize yourself. There's a CEO who talked about the fact that he goes into his office 5 minutes before, shuts the door, and does like a Muhammad Ali boxing routine that he's made up because he's visualizing himself winning. That's his visualization. It works for him. For us, if one-footed garlands are the thing that trips you up, ski them in your mind and ski them well. Ski them slowly. Watch yourself do it. Look for your subconscious to insert the mistake. Pause the visualization. Fix the mistake. And re-see it cleanly. All right. Story. I am a person who chokes in the bumps and blows out of the line. I am a person who doesn't teach well under pressure. I am a person that does not understand how the MA filter works. Whatever your story is, that's your story. I want to do a brief, everybody needs to get up because you guys are all falling asleep. So I want to do a brief activity that I learned from Tom Crum about story. So if everybody who's not injured can come up here. 1, 2, I just need a couple pairs. Let's get 2 pairs. Come here. Injured, injured. Busy. You don't need those at this moment. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. Just put that stuff in your pocket. Yeah. Okay, so here's what I want to do. Can I borrow you, actually? Okay. So Tom Crum talks about story as this thing that we believe about ourselves, and we've talked a little bit previously about how story affects performance. So you're going to be my story. You've done this before, yeah?
Oh, okay.
Okay, so
Now.
you got it? Okay, so
It's coming back.
Kurt's gonna be my story. Go ahead, story. So he's gonna do this, right? This is kind of what it feels like when you've got the stuff you believe about yourself just sort of holding on to you, yeah? And if I want to move forward but it's really difficult to ski bumps with this much story on your back, right? So story, you're gonna hold the person and don't let them move, okay? Yep, there you go. And I want to move forward, so I'm gonna try, don't let me do it, I'm gonna try I'm going to try really hard to work through my life with my story attached to me. Okay, so let's try that first. We'll just try this first part. So get a story, put your story on. Come on. There you go. Aww. Get your painting all over her. Yeah. Okay. Up around the arms like this. Up around the arms. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Really squeeze him. Give him a hard time. Come on. Okay. Move. See if you can walk forward with this much story on you. Oh, she's willful. Okay, so now, so this is Tom's idea of centering and dealing with story, is that you have to accept that you have a story. If you deny the story, it's still there, right? Come get back. Come here, story. So I can be like, my story doesn't bother me. It's still right there. Still a problem, right? No, I don't have a story. Obviously not true. So what Tom says is accept the story, move down and into the story, right? That's that active centering. Feel that the story is there and that it's true. And then look at where you're going and move with purpose from center with your story, right? So I'm going to accept that I have the story and then I'm just going to get going. Thank you. So I'm always a little worried, is it going to work? But it does, because there's something about accepting it. Now, the caveat is you can't pick your story up, because then you're just carrying it around with you, and you're going to get fatigued anyway. You have to move from purpose, from center. So let's try it again.
All right.
Story. Don't run into each other.
Yeah, I'll go.
Okay, so first, accept the fact that you have the story, whatever that story is. Move down and into it, and then from that powerful place, move forward with purpose. Nice. Awesome. So stories, did you get pulled harder the second time? Mm-hmm. Or not?
More even.
It was more even, yeah. Awesome. And so in an ideal world, we'd switch. I don't know, you made more headway, for sure. Okay, thanks you guys. You can go ahead and sit down. So try this. It's just an interesting example of what a little bit of willingness to look at what's going on does to your powerful purpose moving forward. Okay. So it's not me. It's not you, it's me. Just really need to focus on my training right now, right? So we talked about personal relationships, and so now I want to talk about personal relationships and setting up your space. And that includes your space with people, right? So when I go to an event, regardless of what kind of event it is, I know that for my own self, I can't share space with people. I need my own room. And it needs to have a door that closes, right? Preferably, I would have the whole space, including the kitchen, by myself. Because then nobody else's energy is going to interfere with me. And that's not against my friends who, if we were just going on a ski trip, it would be really fun to stay with. But selection or certification is different. You're trying to show your best self. So you need to understand if you're a person that is capable of rooming with other people, sharing space, sharing a bed, as some people do, or not. And if you're not, and it's a financial concern, then you need to plan ahead so that you can save enough so that you can get a room where you can be by yourself, right? You gotta break up with your friends a little bit. You can do it using your safe word. I'm so sorry, Strawberry. I'm gonna stay in my own room, but thanks for asking. Right? Okay, so it is okay for you to do that. And it's important that you set up the rest of your space that way too, with things that are familiar and things that support you in your process. So one of the other things that familiarity that's really important is this. What do you eat before the event? Have you been binging on sugar, not sleeping, and just living on pizza? Have you been not eating? Before the event, you need to figure out what can I eat at the event? So have I found a space that's enough isolated that sets me up to have my own space? Can I prepare food in that space? What kind of food sets me up for success? You need to plan this way ahead of time. And does this sound psychotic? But what are we doing? We're reducing all of the unknown. Okay? I can't eat at the Hampton Inn breakfast buffet. That is not happy time for my tummy. So I'm like, whatever those eggs are, that does not work for me at 10:30. I'm like, oh no. Okay, so I know that if I eat oatmeal every morning, it will last me through when I'm like, oh no, I wish that I had we need to go in for a coffee break, right? It's long burning for me. I know that it won't upset my tummy. And if you eat it for a week before the event every day for breakfast, you'll know exactly how your stomach's going to react to it. And you take that same oatmeal with you to the room that you made sure has a hot plate or a kettle. And you cook the same thing for breakfast every day. Does that sound boring? Good. Boring is good because boring is the same. And the same takes variables out so that all that's left is you and your skiing, right? So practice what you're going to eat beforehand and then only eat that. And is everybody going out to dinner and doing tequila shots on the first night? Well, unless you do that every night and that's part of your training regime, I would not say, hey, sit down. I would not suggest doing that, right? Because it's going to disrupt your biological function. And having a body that you can rely on is part of feeling like you've set yourself up for success, mitigates some of that pressure. Yeah? Let's think about sugar. Lots of times when we're on a road trip or we're going somewhere, we end up going through, we're driving somewhere, we're flying somewhere. The airports and gas stations are full of so much awesome stuff, right? Charleston Chew. Not that I love that, but the problem is that temptation is there. And if you suddenly eat road food instead of your food that you normally eat, you're going to send your blood sugar all out of whack. And when your blood sugar's out of whack, guess what gets released? Cortisol. And cortisol is bad for performance, right? You stress your body by eating differently. So just think about it as you're walking through the airport and you're like, ooh, Swedish fish. I'll eat those on the plane. If you're not drinking Red Bull all the time, don't drink Red Bull. Okay, just before the event, you have booked your hotel room. It has a kitchen. You went to the grocery store. You arrived at least one night before, right? If it's team selection, maybe you arrived a couple days before. If it's certification, maybe it's the afternoon before so that you have time to go take a couple runs and see how the snow is. At the very least, it should be the night before so that you can check in, unpack, set up, know where your stuff is, understand where you need to be in the morning, right? Where's the event? What building is the actual check-in and the evening lectures in? Stay there if you can. If you can't, figure out ahead of time where that is, how long does it take to get there, where do I park once I'm there, how long does it take me to walk through and put my stuff down? Know this, because then at the morning of selection, you're not like, oh my God, where do I park? And you're running in late and you meant to be there, and they're like, that's not very professional. And you're like, oh, right? So, for selection or certification, show up at least the night before. Bring all your stuff into your room. Unpack completely, like a crazy person, like you're moving in forever. Find a home for everything. This is perfect. My boot bag will be here. Every morning I'll come out, my boot bag's there, there's a plug right there, that works, I can put my batteries right there. Okay, that lives there. I've given it a home. My underwear goes here, my base layers go here, my mid layers go here, my extra socks go here, my outers are going to hang here and here so that I can see them. Sometimes I spread my clothes out on the floor. Do I sound obsessive compulsive? Yeah, welcome to performance, baby. The more obsessive compulsive you are, the more variables you remove, and then all you have to do is be like, I know where that is, this goes on, this goes on, this goes on, got my boot bag, see you later. You don't even have to worry or stress. Okay, so the night before you unpack completely, everything has a home. You don't go out and socialize just yet. Socializing is important, connecting with your teammates is important. It's less important than setting yourself up to perform well, right? Take the pressure off yourself. I like to take a tour after I've set my house up and be like, I brought my Alpine Technical Manual. It's going to live there on the coffee table. That looks nice right there. That's my study area. You know? Be proud of yourself. Walk through and be like, okay, this is what I did for me. Recognize after you set yourself up for success that you've given yourself that gift. There's your support that's not a support trap. It comes from you, right? Okay. Then, go to sleep. Well, first go out and say hello. Don't eat anything you wouldn't normally eat. It's difficult when you're out at a restaurant or whatever, but do your best to eat similarly. If you've decided to share a room, you were smart and you brought earplugs because somebody's going to snore, okay? And those earplugs are right next to your bed in the home that you gave them, yeah? If you're not sure that you're going to be able to sleep, you've done something about that. Maybe you have an Ambien with you or half an Ambien. I'm not promoting it. I'm saying you need to know what it is that you need to do. If you've decided to take a sleep aid during selection, you better have tried that before and know how it affects you because this stuff does not work well for everybody, right? Maybe you need to and you brought with you, and that's part of your routine. And then you make yourself a cup of tea, and you sit down on your couch and you do your 10 minutes of visualization of success. And that's not them saying, congratulations! That's the result. The success is you skiing well. That's the visualization, right? The task, not the byproduct, which is the pin or the selection. Okay, and then you tuck in and you give yourself enough sleep like you normally do. When you wake up refreshed and you're going free skiing with your buddies and you're like, I got 8.6 hours of sleep. I feel awesome. That's what you're going to shoot for here too. So when people are like, oh, but we're just there's music. You're like, yeah, but then I will only get 8.4 hours of sleep. So I got to go. Thanks. Have fun, you guys. Take care of yourself. Okay, the morning of. You're going to wake up late and stress out because you didn't unpack and you forgot to plug your boots in and you didn't bring any breakfast and you don't know how far away the venue is. That sounds really stressful. Let's erase that. Let's not do that. Let's wake up nice and early after having slept the right amount of time, eat the breakfast that we prepared, grab the snacks that we laid out the night before and put them in our bag, put on your rock and roll mix that you downloaded ahead of time, dance around in your underwear if that's part of your morning happy routine. This is why I don't share a room, by the way, because nobody should see that. But and then have your coffee or whatever it is you need to do. Roll out on your foam roller that you remembered to bring, right? Have extra time to just be like, okay, I got it, good. Take your boot bag with you and go down and check in. And then the reason I like to take my boot bag with me, even if I am staying in the same room that the event is happening in, is because putting on boots is a good time to be social if you set yourself up for success ahead of time. If you put your boots on in your room and you come down and then you're not part of the ritual of preparing to go skiing with your friends and get evaluated, which is also part of our ritual, right? So you have this opportunity to sit down and buckle your boots and do everything out of the bag that you've packed ahead that you know where everything is. So now you have an opportunity if your friend comes up to you and says, oh my God, I'm really scared. What are you listening to? Do you have any tape? You'll be like, I do have tape. I have ibuprofen. How are you? Why are you scared? Because you're fine. Because you set yourself up to feel comfortable, at ease, and at home during this. Okay, during the event. Most of these strategies work really well if you start practicing them now so you can apply them during the event. If you haven't practiced it, it's really hard to do it during the first time and have it be effective during the event, right? Not all of these will work for everybody. So if you hear something that works for you, use that. You don't need all whatever billion of them. There's not a billion, I promise. Okay. So the first one is befriend the moment. So saying to yourself, as you feel like I must do this right, turning that around and saying, I wonder how well I can do this. Seeing the moment as an opportunity is just a mental trick that flips you away from ranking and into excellence, right? Not easy for everybody to do, but possible. Flip thinking, befriending the moment. Individuals who perceive a task or situation not as a threat, but instead as a challenge, an opportunity, or fun are far more likely to perform up to the level of their own ability, increasing the chance for success. So how, like during selection, how are you supposed to view these things like, ooh, let's go ski in Shindy Mank with no poles? Yeah, that's actually really fun, right? It's really fun if you decide it's really fun. If you're like, but she does it better than I do, I'm not going to be good at this. It is no longer fun. But if you can stay in yourself and say, let's see how this goes, what's a good coaching cue for that? Okay, got it. Here we go. Then you can just enjoy and look at it as a stupid human trick or a challenge. How good can you be at that? The next one is get back in your body. So if you're a person who, when the pressure's on, you start to feel like, have you ever stood next to somebody during certification or selection that's doing that? They've got that kind of wild and they can't focus and they're like, woo! And like just being near them starts to do it to you a little bit. And you're like, what's going on with you, man? So what happens is that the pressure releases all these hormones, right? And you have elevated heart rate and you have rapid breath and you have all these issues that are clouding your thinking. So you need to get back in your body. So one of the ways you can get back in your body is through a 5 senses, shock yourself. So that is, or a 5 senses meditation. And the first 3 are the most important. So the first one would be to say, I see. So you're standing there and there's those trees, right? You can say to yourself, I see Mary Catherine sitting in the back. And what I see on Mary Catherine is her beautiful necklace, and it's a silver necklace. But it doesn't all look the same color as silver. I see darkness where the shadow is on it and a lot of brightness, which almost looks white. So it's like black, white, and gray. And actually, it's also picking up the green behind you. So there's a lot of color in that silver necklace. So now I'm really seeing specifically. And rather than being like, I see the sky and the trees and everybody skiing, which goes this way, you want to take your vision and be like, I see, and really narrow it down until you're really present with exactly what's in front of you. And picking up on all the different color variations is really, really useful for that. I feel. Lots of times when you're standing outside, one side of your face is colder than the other because the wind's blowing in one direction and the sun's shining in one direction. Just that one simple trick, I feel that the left side of my face is warmer than the right side of my face, will put you right back in your body. I feel that I better retighten my boots. I didn't know that till I paid attention. I feel, as I'm standing here, just sliding my skis back and forth on the snow, the slickness of the snow underneath my skis. I feel the chairlift bumping. Whatever it is, right? Boom, in your body. What do you hear? Get really quiet. I hear people talking. I hear a dog barking. I hear a bird. I hear the chairlift. I hear my iPod. I hear my friend next to me, right? Now you are present in this moment. You're not worried about what's going to happen or judging what has happened. You're right here, right now. And from that place, you can make a decision and begin to perform. That's 5 senses. Multiple opportunities. Does anybody know who this is? Yeah, girl! That's right. Yeah, me too, totally. Man on wire. So this crazy dude really did only have kind of one opportunity to do this, but that's not generally us. So he strung a cable between the World Trade Centers and walked it without a safety harness, which is wild. And there's a wonderful movie and book called Man on Wire about it. We need to not think of ourselves in this situation, right? There's another opportunity. There's a turn that will happen right after this one. That's the next opportunity. There's a run that will happen right after this one. And then you get to teach. And then you get to participate in somebody else's teach. And then if you don't get selected, you get to go again, if you want to. But you have multiple opportunities. And by the way, if you never achieve your certification or you never get selected, there is other opportunity in your world, in your life, in your environment, in this industry. And that doesn't mean give up your dream and don't want to be selected or certified. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is go for it with everything that you have and believe in it, but trust that this is not the only opportunity. Because if you believe this is your only opportunity, oh man, how much pressure is that? It's too much. Now we're right back into primal fight or flight, life or death. And we don't want to live there because it doesn't let us show who we are. Okay. The next one is downsizing the importance of an event. That was the best picture I could find of somebody begging. Oh, please, let it happen. It's so important. It will define me as a person. It will define me as a professional. It will define me as an educator. It will define me as a valued and important member of this team, right? So who do you think, I'm going to give you a scenario and I want to know who do you think is under the least amount of pressure, okay? A golfer leading by a stroke going into the final round of the US Open, a cardiac surgeon prepping for a quadruple bypass, or a baker beginning to roll the dough for his best friend's birthday cake. Who's under the least pressure? Yes?
Baker.
The baker. Lots of people would say the baker. That's the most common answer. Thank you. Here's your $5. It's all the same. It depends on how the person is handling the pressure situation. If the golfer goes, it's another stroke, and the surgeon says, it's only a quadruple, myself doesn't work. It is important. It is. So we're not saying, don't say it's not important. It can't be the other things that are more important, right? Like my connection with my friend, or how my children are doing, or whatever it is for you that is other than this. Is this important? Yes. Is it the most important? No. Have you done it before? Probably. Can you do it again? Mitigating that sense of importance. So one of the things that performing under pressure says is recognize that over-exaggerating is equally unrealistic as denial thinking, where you're like, people say it's unrealistic to tell yourself that something isn't really important when you know that it is. But the exaggerated thinking that pressure gives you is as unrealistic. So pick the one that's going to help you do what you're trying to do. Does that make sense? Recognizing that over-exaggerating is equally unrealistic, and because of the nature of pressure, you're apt to over-exaggerate the importance of a pressure moment to the point of hurting your performance anyway. Over-exaggerating is apt to stimulate primal pressure and push you toward choking and panic. Focus on the mission. This is a good one. I like this one because it's not about positive or negative. This is void of judgment. What is the mission? 1 ski garlands. Can you tell I love that task? That is my mission. Okay, if that is the mission, what do I need to do? What's my coaching cue that helps me do that, right? Forward and in, release, forward and in, release. That's just me, or whatever it is for you, right? That's the mission. I'm going to go over there on 1 ski doing this. Don't mess up your 1-footed garlands is not the mission. Don't mess up your 1-footed garlands is the surest way to totally and completely blow it. Because now you've popped yourself out of your body and out of the mission and out of the moment, and you're judging. If you're judging, you're ranking. If you're ranking, you're caught in the competition trap. And you're less likely to succeed. Focusing on your mission creates mindset that helps you recognize the best way to accomplish your mission is simply to do your best on each task. What is the task at hand? What do you need to do right in this moment? So the next one is give yourself a positive go message. If as you're skiing, you're going, oh, that turn sucked. I'm way back. I used to be better at this. I wish they would see me be better at this. You're still a turn or 6 behind. What do you need to do now? What do you need to do right? Do you have time to be analyzing how it is that you snuck up on the building if you're in a true pressure situation where your life is on the line? Or do you really need to focus on what's happening next? Because pressure triggers sensations that make us feel like it's life or death, we need to treat those anxieties the same way. Okay? What do you need to do to fix it? If you hear yourself saying, I'm back, give yourself a cue, a positive cue that is a direction that you need to move. Move forward. Pull feet, thrust hips, whatever it is that you need to do. Run into something with your feet. That's a good one in the bumps, right? I'm back. Boom, I'm no longer back. Now I've gone over the handlebars. But okay, positive go message. Next one. Break up with her. So Tom Crum calls this your roommate. This is the voice you hear in your head. I have several of them. And they say horrible things to me. Like the one that I shared with you in Sidebuster. A person who would get selected to this thing you're trying to do would ski this better than you are. Shut up, I did not invite you. You know what I mean? Do not take this person skiing with you. They are not your friend. They live in your head, but you can silence them. You can recognize that that's a voice of judgment, and who cares where it comes from? It's your mom, it's your coach, it's yourself for some reason. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Duct tape over the mouth, leave them at the bottom, ski away from them. I've actually, in certain events, in skating events, had to like come off the ice and pretend, go like this with my hand and be like, you could just sit right there, I'm gonna go skate some more. Yeah, because you have to physically detach yourself from story at that point, or from someone who really wants to impose it on you. Mike Rogan once said to me, you can break up with your turn, right? And I will give you the clean version of this story, which was, if you're stuck in that turn, you don't have to marry it. You met it at the bar last night. Ditch it, move on, right? You can break up with your roommate the same way. You were not helpful or as pretty as I thought you were last night. Moving on. Thank you, Mike Rogan. Let's do this. Who do I need? I need you. Come here. Okay. Have you ever done the stupid instructor trick? Where you take that, you can't put it in the little hole, though. You have to just put it there. And then you try to balance it.
No.
Oh, yeah. So, like, when you're waiting at lineup, you can just kind of do that. Just try to balance it.
Okay.
Okay? So, I don't want you to mess this up. I don't want you to drop it. I want you to show us your best. Yeah, that's, see? She's already...
You suck! You're terrible!
Yeah, let's see. Make it balance. Uh-huh. Very tricky.
You still suck. You're doing that really bad.
So you know I'm eating all of those. I'm not giving them back.
Exactly.
Oh, you're not supposed to stick it in the hole. You're cheating.
Yeah, you're
Oh,
cheating.
Oh.
No cheating! You're even worse than sucking.
Oh, this
Is it
awesome.
really?
I'm getting all this free
Okay,
candy.
so here's my question. Thank you. Is it easier to do it when your roommate is yelling at you about how good you are at this? Is it disrupting your concentration, or is it helping?
I'm not as pressured in this situation, so it's not like unhelpful either way. But
Oh,
if I
good.
really deeply cared, like
Uh-huh.
if it was like this is the
You know that
fate,
we're
then
on live TV, right?
That's fine. So so I am not actually good at this.
Okay.
So,
Oh, underdog.
yeah,
Let's see.
Interesting.
Uh-huh.
That's one of my big self.
There we go,
that
right?
I am the underdog.
I actually don't care. It doesn't really matter, right? What if you really did care?
If I really cared,
Yeah,
and someone was actually throwing stuff at me,
yeah.
I'd be like a wreck, but I'd try not to hide it. And then like my I've been in situations like that. And
Yeah.
your eyes, you're like, I'm not going to cry. I had a moment in Sodbuster, and I
That's
felt
okay,
really
you can-
humiliated, and my goggles were all fogged up, and I was trying not to show on the outside. I was like, I can't see anything right now because I am actually crying and trying not to show that,
Right.
you know. So yeah,
Inside, because you are getting criticized.
yeah. but
Right?
now I just got free candy. So.
So now you guys can eat the candy, those of you that didn't throw it. Here, and there's more for those of you that didn't get candy. So basically the candy was meant to simulate your roommate yelling things at you in your head. And it really wrecks your concentration. And it's true that you can use things like, I don't care, to underdog yourself. The problem is that puts you in the pack, but doesn't help you succeed. And if you want to be at the top, you want to get through the process, you have to care. You have to care. But you can't be owned by judgment. And that's the tricky balance here. All right. Are you God? Are you God? Sometimes. Awesome. You're coming with me to the next event. I will share a room with you. So that's right. But in skiing, well, there are Chinese ski gods, I've heard, but it's a mythical creature, right? There are things you can control and things that you cannot control. And it is important know the difference. This is one of those performance pressure solutions. Can you control the weather?
But you can have trained to ski in all conditions.
Aha!
You can lie in your bed then.
Or you can what?
You can lie in your bed in a cloudy day.
You can lie in your bed in a cloudy day. That is not going to set you up for success, though, is it?
Well,
What else can't you? What else can't you control?
Who's in your group?
people.
Who's in your group? Other people. Really important to understand that you can't control your group. What if somebody who's really ridiculously good looking is in your group? Like Lucy. No. What if somebody who's really ridiculously annoying is in your group? Yeah, the worst, right? But you can't control it. Yeah, what do you need to do? You need to do something that allows you to stay in your own space without being like, I wish they weren't, I can't believe they got in my group. God, it's going to mess me all up. You're right, it will. That's true. You just made it true. What can you control?
Your reaction to it.
You can't control my spelling. Oh, yes, I could. I could have practiced. Reaction. Okay, how about your gear? Can you control what gear you bring to the selection? What if gear's expensive and you need a different ski than you have? You can still control, because we have lots of friends who will loan us gear, don't we? Yeah. What if you break equipment? Can you control if you break equipment? Bring 2 pair or 3 pair. Yeah, me too. Over prepare, right? How much? Right kind. Showing up unprepared is an excuse. It's not professional. It's not what the people who have the job that you want do, right? Can you control the tune on your gear? Yeah, especially if you've learned to tune it yourself. Yay! Well, we already said like the firmness of the snow. No, but you can tune for it. Conditions. Yeah. Can't. Frozen chicks. We can't control frozen chicks. Not meant to say X, but anyway. Okay, so, yeah. And so on and so on and so on and so on. Can you control how you have been sleeping for the last 3 weeks? Yes, you can, right? Can you control how fit you are when you get to an event? You bet. When they pull out that bump run on day 3 in the afternoon, it's up to you. You could be prepared for that. You could have been practicing it and you could be more fit. Yep. If you filled your coat with snacks out of your boot bag that you prepared ahead of time, you won't bonk. You'll be like, right on, let's go ski those bumps. It's a challenge. I wonder how good I can be at this, right? So recognizing this so that when you get triggered by something, you can say to yourself, yeah, but I can't control that. What can I control? That I don't stand next to that annoying person. Awesome, done, solved. Okay, the next one is expect the unexpected. So this is a fun game to play, but it has to be a game. You have to recognize that this is a healthy game for you to play or not. Because for some people, this game can incite anxiety. And so if you're prone to anxiety, maybe you need to frame it a little bit differently. But expect the unexpected means like, what if you break a ski? Have another pair. What if it rains? Make sure your jacket's waterproof, right? What if what? What else could be unexpected? What could happen? What if somebody has a heart attack in your group? What would you do?
Concussions.
There you go. Right. We would make sure we had a nurse in the group. Awesome. Done. I want to ski in the group with a nurse. Okay. But right? What if there's a wind hold?
Yes.
Out of it. Hopefully you skied your best for the last couple runs, because at Mammoth, they shut down the selection and that was it. They chose based on what they were able to see, right? That could happen, right? If you're like, that's not fair, you didn't get to see my wedge Christie's in my best move. Well, tough, man. That's how it is. It was unexpected, but we're do the best with what we have, right? Okay, so playing this game in training groups is really useful. If you have a study group that you get together with, it can be really fun to go around the room and everybody say, Like, what else could happen? And come up with solutions. Just playing the game and not actually even needing to like pack your automatic electronic defibrillator with you will help you recognize that it's okay for unexpected things to happen and that people creatively come up with solutions and it's probably going to be fine. Rely on your skill set. If you are hoping to go to selection or certification with the skill set that you picked up 2 weeks ago, or with a change that you made 10 days ago, it is possible that that skill set might show up on the day. But that's not setting yourself up for success. And I'm not saying don't go. Go. Just recognize that that's not necessarily a skill set you can rely on or rest in. And under pressure, we know that we don't ever perform better than our best when not under pressure. So recognize that if you've done this before and you feel okay about how you did before and you've repeated it enough times, it's probably there for you. So I'm going to tell you a little story briefly. There's a show here called Writ Large, which is a live storytelling event. And it's at Justice Snow's, which is a restaurant in town. And there were like 45 people, I think. The room was really full. And my son Bodhi decided that he was going to go to this event and give a talk to Writ Large. And so he had prepared a 7-minute talk about something that was really important to him in his life. It's a lot like the Moth Storytelling Hour, if you guys have ever heard that on the radio. It's true stories unscripted in front of a live audience. And so Bodhi has prepared. He has practiced, even though it's not scripted. He's stood in front of the group. He's got notes from the person. He's been in theater. He's stood on stage before. Audiences aren't foreign to him. He knows this story. It's personal. It comes from him. He's invested and wants to share. And he's standing in the back of the room with the audience. He's shaking like white and shaking. And he's going, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And I've totally felt exactly the same, I think, standing at the top of Sodbuster. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this, right? So he was experiencing the effects of pressure because he didn't want to screw it up in front of the support trap. He didn't want to screw it up in front of his family and his friends who had come to watch and his coach that had helped him. But he had something that was really important to him that he wanted to share. And I'm standing there going, it's not going to help to say, oh, you'll be fine. Because that doesn't cut through the nonsense, right? And so we used this one. What? Yeah, right. I didn't have it yet. I'm going to get a shot collar. No, what I realized was that we could use this one. And I said to him, have you done this before? And he was like, yeah. I said, have you told this story before? And he said, yeah. I said, how many times? He said, I don't know, 10. I said, yeah. How'd you do? He was like, fine. I said, so don't you think you'd probably be fine here? And he was like, probably. Right? And then here come the nerves again, immediately. So you have to regulate that because your fight or flight is going to kick in, but rest comfortably knowing that you have this skill set. You have done it before. It's likely that you'll do it again. And I'm not talking about passing certification. I'm not saying you've passed before, so you probably will again. I'm saying the task at hand, the mission, right? You skied that line before or something similar. You know you have that skill set. So it's probably going to be there for you. Flash back to previous success. This one's really useful also. I mean, they all are. Depends on what works for you. So have you had an outstanding run? Have you had an amazing teach once in your life and blown it every other time? Flash back to the one success. Did you have a moment when you were sitting in movement analysis and you were like, oh, I totally get why that works? Flash back to that right before you do your movement analysis, right? Did you have a moment where you just rocked your wedge Christies in a way that like just blew people's minds? Flash back to that. The sum total of those may result in you passing your certification. If that's resultant, it doesn't matter. Okay. This is one of my favorite, the 8-second exhale. So regulating your breathing. We know that one of the spikes that we have from pressure is physiological. We have elevated heart rate, we get the shakes, and we get shallowness of breath. All of which are really good for making you pass out and feel dizzy and disconnected. So 8-second exhale comes after a 4-second inhale. So let's try it right now. Everybody exhale. Get all the air out of your lungs. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Do you feel calmer? It often, I think we lost one. We lost 2. It often only takes 1 breath. I may or may not have been doing that all morning. Right? You're pushing out all the CO2. You get excess CO2 when you hyperventilate. It makes you dizzy and crazy. Right? You're pushing all that out. You're slowing down the respiratory rate, which lowers your heart rate. And then maybe you can do the 5 sentences of meditation right after that. I see the necklace. Here I am. I'm back. Right? 8-second exhale. Put that one in your pocket. Assume the position. If I am afraid and I assume a position of someone who has fear, have you guys ever had clients like this where you're like, okay, let's go ski mushroom? And they're like, oh, okay. I really want to ski mushroom. Like, is this a position of confidence, like standing there on my skis? No. So how does a confident person stand? If I don't feel confident, but I need to act with confidence, I can assume the position of a confident person. Chest up, face up. Take it, yes. I would love to go ski mushroom. Meanwhile, in your brain, no, holy God, we're all gonna die. Thank you, roommate, don't need that, right? A confident person goes this way. Okay, this is a trick from acting, where if you wanna be able to cry on stage, and crying on stage is really, really difficult because you're trying to remember lines and blocking and you're interacting with other people and there's lights and none of it is very emotional. But if you need to tap into emotion, you assume the position. So if you need to cry on stage, you assume the position of grief. So I'm not gonna stand there like this and expect to start crying. I'm going to put my body in a position that maybe is a position that I take when I'm really, really upset or something like that. And when I physically assume that position, I have access to that emotion. So if you're feeling sad and you need to feel happy, this is where fake it till you make it comes through. It's not denial or lying. It's positional. It allows you greater access in this moment. If you need to feel calm and you feel crazy and you're tapping and you're shuffling, 8-second exhale with your eyes closed is a position of calmness. If you're feeling stressed and it makes you clench your jaw, yawn, smile, right? Opposite. Powerful. Positive imagery is powerful medicine. Right? That's powerful medicine, don't you think? If you change your mind. Okay, so well, I don't care what's on your ski mix, but this is on mine. So this is why I don't room with anyone, back to that, right? Because, yeah. Whatever you need to do to make yourself feel in the moment, supported, not in a trap, but in a positive way. A powerful song, something that you connect to, that you listen to starting now, not starting on the day, right? That says, yeah, baby, good for you for being here. Let's do the best we can. Let's show them what we have, right? For me, it's ABBA. I don't care what it is for you. Some people use Eminem. Okay, so this one's really important. Yeah, it was you, I know. It's better on my computer, you can barely see it. Okay, so on the chairlift, make sure that you are asking for what you need and being sensitive to what other people need. So when you're sitting on the chairlift during a certification or a selection, and you're like talking to the person next to you, and you're like, how was my teach? Do you think my teach went okay? I'm not so sure. What do you think? I think when I said this, blah, blah, blah. And the person next to you is up next, you are really vomiting all over them, and that is not teamwork. Or when you get on the chairlift and the person next to you turns to you and says, hey, you know what, you're really tipping inside on your short turns. Like, whoa, dude, I did not ask for that feedback. Thank you very much, la, la, la. So you need to be sensitive to your own situation, but you also need to be sensitive to the people sitting next to you. If you want to give somebody feedback, ask them, would you like a piece of feedback? Not right now? Okay, cool, no worries. Don't get offended if they say no. It's their selection, just like it's your selection, right? Yes, I'd like feedback, but I might not implement it. Okay. Whatever it is, right? Don't throw up on other people in the chair, it's not nice. It will make them want to jump. You can also sit on the chair and say, I'm just going to listen to my music and zone out for a minute. And then you put your headphones in, but you don't even turn your music on, right? As you go over your teach or your coaching cue, whatever it is that you need. Don't do it on every chair, because part of being in this organization is being social and supportive, but balance it with what you need for yourself. That shows a good example to other people. Build a ritual or use an anchor. These are not mechanical cues. This is not like, I don't know what would be a mechanical cue. So first I will tip, and then I will move, and then I will twist, and then I will, with my right pinky finger, go, that's methodical, mechanical. An anchor word or a ritual is something that helps you be the way that you'd like to be overall. Smooth, balanced, free. It's a word like that, right? And maybe that word aggressive, chill, right? Short turns or wedge Christies, whatever it is for you. You can build that word with like maybe a pull click. The pull click tells your mind, if you start practicing it now, click go, that it's time to perform. That now everything else that's going on, the talking, the text you got, don't check your phone during certification, by the way, that's a bad idea. And don't get your results either, that's also a really bad idea. But anyway, the pull click and the cue will help you know, time to be smooth. That's an anchor word. So if you want to stay classy all the time and be totally smooth all the time under pressure, then you need to practice experiencing pressure. Put yourself under pressure all the time. This is like aversion therapy, right? If you hate that run is now your favorite. If you hate skiing under the chair because you don't like that you think people are judging you, ski under the chair till you realize they really don't care, right? If you don't like being on camera, get a friend to film you all the time. Make a video diary, watch it, be horrified, erase it, who cares, right? Expose yourself repeatedly to the thing that stresses you out the most. Then it won't be such a surprise. So if you're afraid to teach in front of people that are judging you, it's time for you to go ask your trainer if you can lead a clinic. If you're afraid that you suck at MA, it's time for you to raise your hand in MA and be willing to fail. Because the place to fail is while you're training, not while you're at certification, right? You want to be able to rely on the skill set. The skill set will only be there if you have practiced it under duress. Okay, so add stress. Go ski the frozen chicken heads if you're afraid of them. Here's an interesting one. So there was a study that was done, and I won't read the whole study, but that basically shows that if a right-handed person squeezes a ball with their left hand just before they perform, it can interrupt this sort of methodical, mechanical thinking that keeps you out of what's called flow. So flow is your ability to rely on your skill set, right? I know that I can ski this because I've done it a million times before. My body automatically knows how to ski it. It's not a new skill. It's something I can rely on. And then you're standing at the top and you're like, how do I do this again? Are my skis going to turn? I'm not really sure. I should yank them across the fall line really, really quick, right? Oh, wait, that wasn't it. If you have a ball in your pocket and you squeeze it with your left hand, it interrupts that mechanical thinking signal and allows you to go back to automatic thinking, to resting in your skill set. Does that make sense? Did I say that clearly? I can read the study to you if you want, but no. Okay. Choking occurs when a well-rehearsed skill fails because the person brings self-conscious thinking, how am I doing, to the event. Squeezing the ball with the opposite hand that you are dominant in interrupts that. Give it a try before the event. When you're learning, you go through stages of comprehensive, right? Comprehension, cognitive, associative, autonomous. When you think mechanically about a skill, you're in cognitive, right? When you're acquiring a new skill, you're in cognitive. When you own that skill, and then you think mechanically or cognitively about that skill, you block access to your automatic skill set that you've built, which is why we use an anchor word like smooth or flow or a coaching cue for the particular task and not break down the mechanical piece. So keep it simple. This is why people say just go skiing. And you're like, just go skiing. Thanks a lot for saying that. That's not helpful. Well, What they mean is do what your body knows how to do. Don't space out and expect it to go ski like a robot on its own. You need to be present, but you need to trust your skill set. Keep it simple. Give it a name. I'm scared. This is scary. When you say it out loud, I'm nervous. When you say it out loud, you take some of its power away. Fear is amplified by silence. Fear feeds off of silence. Anxiety feeds off of silence, right? You don't have to say it to the person next to you. That's throwing up on them. You could just like turn around and walk away and say, okay, this situation is really scary. I am acknowledging that I am frightened. And miraculously, that fear will diminish. It might not go away completely, but you've acknowledged that it's there. You're standing there with your fear. Another thing that you can do is you can write down what it is that scares you ahead of time. What are your fears about this thing that's going to happen? When you give voice to it, sometimes you can see what some of those proclivities are, and then you can get to work breaking them and reprogramming them if you do it early enough. I'm afraid of this because I don't want to disappoint so-and-so. I'm afraid of this because I think that I might get injured. I'm afraid of this because whatever. Right? When you write that down, you will understand what kind of trap it is, what sort of pressure you're susceptible to, and then you can make a plan and try and change it. Then you have an opportunity to actually stay grounded and show what you have to show. We have just a couple of slides left, and then I'm going to put the ask for questions and put the resources up. So meditation. Here's the rainbows and dolphins. People are always like, oh, don't tell me to meditate. And I was actually going to do a meditation with you guys, but I will save you from it because of time. But I do want to read you this. Researchers found that meditation altered for the better the white matter that connects the anterior cingulate cortex, ACC, to other structures in the brain. In other words, after meditation training, your ACC is able to regulate your thoughts, behaviors, and emotions more effectively, and thus help you respond more effectively in pressure moments. It is scientifically proven that meditation helps your brain function better under pressure. So there's lots of different kinds of meditation. Some may be suited to you, some may not. You don't have to sit for 3 hours. You don't have to go on a 10-day retreat. You can set up your visualization, your 10-minute visualization at night is a meditation, because meditation is the practice of paying attention to only one thing. So if you need to stare at a candle flame for 5 minutes and try to just let the thoughts go away, that works too. So I would suggest if this is interesting to you, that you can train your brain to become better at regulating your thoughts, emotions, and feelings, go explore some meditation in your area and see if it works for you. Be obsessive and compulsive. It's good for performance. So we talked about lots of ways that we can do that. It is true. You can set up your environment in a way that the surprises are reduced so that when there is a surprise, you have some emotional space to handle it. And the last one is slow down. When we're experiencing the forces of pressure, we tend to have accelerated thinking. We tend to jump over stuff. We tend to miss details, right? So the 8-second exhale is part of that slow down process. Slow down your thinking. Porter likes to say, Mike Porter out of Vail says, make your first 3 turns slower than you think you want them to, or something like that. You know, start out slow. Feel the snow. What does the snow want? React to the snow, work with the snow, come up to speed, and ski. But you've taken the first 3 turns to slow things down in your mind and in your body, and also experience the world around you in a way that you can react positively to. Going blank is not a result, by the way, of slowing down too much. Going blank happens when your brain's going 1 billion miles an hour and skipping over things, flooding with cortisol and shutting down your ability to retrieve memory. When you slow down, the cortisol response slows down, and suddenly there's all the information you were looking for. And lastly, thank you and good luck. If you have any questions about training or preparing or any of the resources or resources in your area, you can email me through my website, katehowe.com. And here are the resources. So these are some of the things that I used to put together this presentation. And thank you so much. Thanks, guys, that stayed around on the web, and thanks for coming to the presentation tonight. Oh, yeah, does anybody have questions?
No, just a comment.
Yeah.
Like, adaptive.
Yes.
And I came and seen Jonathan Doodle did a talk about swamp of confusion.
Mm.
And I took it that kind of one stage further. And, lizard brain,
Mm-hmm.
I call it Fred.
Mm-hmm.
Give an acronym.
You gave your...
It releases exaggerated decisions. That was the best I could come up with.
Yeah.
And I said, you can through this little swamp, and through this, explain the swamp of confusion. And it's amazing the difference, because you've not made it, oh shit, it's not me, it's this part that does it.
Yeah.
And I put Charlie in there, so that does work.
There you go.
Especially
So for people on the web here who may not understand Scottish, what Tom was talking about is your lizard brain and its automatic prehistoric reactions, like we were talking about before, and recognizing that it's,
Fred knows nothing about skiing, so
he doesn't know anything about skiing. It's just automatic, right?
You do silly things.
And just awareness of that helps you mitigate those responses. Thank you. Awesome. If you guys have any other questions, you can email me at my website, katehowe.com. Thanks.